Government has announced a public-private partnership for the redesign and modernization of the country's 6 busiest land border posts. Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi has confirmed that a request for proposals was issued on the 3rd of September, requesting the private sector to submit their proposals for the project. It says the modernization project is aimed at enhancing regional economic integration, improving revenue collection and to arrest illegal migration, amongst many other factors. Now, Motsoaledi says the border construction process will be undertaken in phases starting from the 4th quarter of next year, following the financial close of the project.
The 6 ports of entry project will cover the full infrastructure development of each designated port of entry and the provision of required services to ensure a coherent and coordinated support of the institutional functions of all organs of state present in the port of entry, in order to ensure that the ongoing operations at each of the designated ports of entry are not interrupted. Construction will be undertaken in phases. During the construction, the project is expected to create in the order of 38,000 jobs in areas around the 6 designated ports of entry. The project is being undertaken on a public-private partnership, a PPP. The procurement process is therefore subject to the procedures set out in Treasury Regulation 16 for initiating, procuring, and concluding PPP projects.
Our reporter Katlego Legodi is standing by to bring us more on that story. Katlego, good afternoon. Thanks for your time with us.
A very good afternoon to you, Lizzle, and of course to our viewers at home.
Right, so on the back of the sentiments echoed from the minister, perhaps you could describe the extent of the operation, perhaps also just looking at South Africa's port performance to date and the importance of it.
Well, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi just basically letting us in on the efforts that are underway as we speak right now. He was frank about where the country finds itself, saying that the infrastructure that is in place as we speak right now is an infrastructure that was introduced during the apartheid years. So you can imagine that we are about 30 years into democracy, and now there have been a lot of movements in and outside of the country. He was also talking about issues of trade with the SADC region, where he was saying that economic activity on these particular ports have been just kind of hampered over time because of the illegal elements that they've picked up. So he's saying that now they're talking about enhancing this infrastructure. It is a mega project. This is how he describes it, a multi-billion rand project that will see basically bidders coming forward to just ensure that they work. It's a private public partnership where they'll come through with their expertise, with their experiences, and just ensure that within the coming year, South Africa's ports are rejuvenated, they are revamped so that we can get the best out of what is happening there. So he's concerned about the illegal elements that have plagued this particular sector for quite some time, even mentioning that at some point you'd see trucks lining up just outside of the stretch of the border posts, be it Lebombo or be it Bridge, and this is where then you see economic activity really hampered in this regard. So he's talking about introducing technology into this space. He's talking about ensuring that the surveillance, ongoing surveillance, sophisticated surveillance that would not in any way ensure that the syndicates that are operating there, because he's admitted that there are sophisticated elements that are operating at these border posts. So these are part of interventions that he says that when he stepped into the office, he found the wheel already in motion, and he now had to just ensure that they restart this entire process and rope in certain elements or certain players. This is where we see the Reserve Bank or the South African Revenue Service, SARS, roped in this regard. We're seeing the Development Bank of South Africa just roped in here. We're seeing Treasury as well, just roped in to ensure that, it's all hands on deck, and all of these efforts don't give way for opportunistic elements that may creep in. So it's a mega project, a multi-billion rand project that he's saying that towards the end of September, he'll be meeting with the bidders that will just come through with their proposals on how they're going to help ensure that this 6, so out of the 53 borders that we have, they've identified 6, which he says that this would be just a start in ensuring that we rehabilitate all of the borders that we have here at home. But he's very worried, Lizzle, about issues of illegality that have plagued these particular facilities over time.
You've spoken about how South Africa's ports are under threat, the focus on the 6 land ports at this point. I wonder, as we look at the future drivers of investment, how this is going to play in South Africa's green hydrogen strategy as well. Did anything come about on that front?
Well, he spoke about really ensuring that South Africa is not left behind also in terms of just the efforts that are underway globally. We are part of the global, community, and green. Everyone is going green right now, which is why it's even encouraging localization to say that those companies that are going to be bidding and coming forward, they should ensure that they have transformative kind of policies, inputs that would help the department and South Africa just to move and form part of this global economy. But also just touching on the fact that he's going to ensure that there's no corruption or corrupt elements that creep in here. I had a one-on-one with him earlier on, and where I just quizzed him about the elements of corruption, because we know very well that when you see projects like this, sometimes you'd see delays, for instance, and he was assuring the nation that there won't be element of corruption that would creep in here, saying that it's a public-private partnership that would ensure that South Africa is not left behind where the global economy and the global community is concerned. But he's just upbeat about the efforts that are underway, not deterred by some of the sentiments around issues of, his office that has been taken to court over time, over issues of just him, rooting out element or criminal element or just within this particular space, saying that this would also see the SADC region getting the best out of South Africa. Those that are trading with South Africa right now, for instance, in Mpumalanga, the mines, we see a lot of movement within the mining space there. And this is where then he's saying that, if more or less South Africa gets it right, then the SADC region also is a winner here. And he's saying that they are, there's work underway. These are facilities that belong to the Department of Public Works, for instance. I remember when Minister Patricia de Lille was still the Minister of Public Works, they tried to build a wall of some sort, and there was controversy around that wall. He's saying that really when you look at our border posts as we speak right now, compare them with other nations like Botswana, for instance, he's saying that we are just rural and they are Sandton. And he was saying that we need to ensure that everyone comes to the party. South Africa is so sophisticated, in the end, and we get the best where the economies are concerned.
Speaking to capacity, connectivity, infrastructure, processing, efficiency, a lot coming to the fore at the time.
Technology.
And technology of the future. Thank you for your time with us and for that update.